Alright, so I hope that you were having fun today. That's now going to end. Welcome to my basement. I'm going to show you some software that I've been working on. Sick. So basically, picture this. Have you ever been trying to order food with your friends and then basically just chaos ensues? Well, that is actually part of a very fundamental problem with trying to run an election. There's always an inherent unfairness and fleetingness to trying to capture public opinion through an election. There have been a lot of people who've written about this. Kenneth Arrow got the Nobel Prize for proving that there is no way to construct an election that's always going to perfectly translate public opinion into public policy. And I'm not going to go over the set theory or the hundreds of pages of work that Kenneth Arrow did to get there, but we're going to show through an example kind of what he's talking about, kind of what political scientists are talking about, and yeah, there's going to be a cool graph. The program prints out a graph. I don't know. So imagine that we've got three people, A, B, and C, Alex, Beth, and Charles, and none of these people are in the lead right now for what kind of ice cream that they want to get. Alex wants vanilla, Beth wants strawberry, Charles wants chocolate, and we see from this basically like chart of all of these people's preferences that every single first choice, second choice, and third choice is completely divided. There's absolutely seemingly no winner right now in what's going to happen. And one thing that we talk about a lot in political science is this concept of a voting paradox, where if somebody likes A more than B more than C, it's a paradox if they like C more than A. That's where we get these kind of circular preferences. Now, individuals can't really do that, but groups can do that all the time. So right here, we've got a classic example of a cycle. Nothing is going to come out of this. Now, interestingly enough, right, let's say that we just took out strawberry as an option. If we take out strawberry, we see that vanilla beats chocolate twice. So they're going to end up getting vanilla ice cream. So already we've got a way that you can totally manipulate the outcome of the final election. Just by introducing another alternative, we've already introduced a voting paradox. And then you imagine things like this happening to people hundreds and hundreds of times over as they're constantly cycling through all of their preferred candidates, and you see that big elections can actually be decided by some pretty fleeting preferences. So over here, I got a Python script. I wrote this over a couple weeks, and what it basically does is it takes all of the options that people have and it compares them in pairs. So this is called a Condorcet election. Condorcet elections basically say, let's take only two of those options at a time, see how they do. Whichever option wins most of the time is going to win the election. So again, here are our preferences. And when we run this Python script over it, it's kind of slow. I'm not great at coding. What we see is this cycle. If we only had chocolate and vanilla, like we saw earlier, vanilla beats chocolate. If we only had vanilla and strawberry, strawberry beats vanilla. And if we only had strawberry and chocolate, chocolate beats strawberry. So we have this cycle. Voters are going to constantly keep cycling over these groups, and we're never going to get anywhere. If we eliminate strawberry, we see that vanilla has beaten chocolate, just like I said it would. Now let's do something really interesting. Let's imagine that Charles goes up to Beth and he says, Beth, I know that strawberry is your favorite choice, but what if you just told Alex that instead of vanilla being your second choice, that vanilla was your third choice? Again, Charles isn't asking Beth to change what her favorite flavor is. He's just asking her to change like her background opinions. If we run the program having taken that into account, we see that the winner is actually going to be chocolate, even though nobody changed their first choice. And this gets to, I think, one of the big takeaways from looking at voting like this, is that you're always going to have this really fickle quality to the outcome of an election. You can very easily get an entirely different outcome by having a third or a fourth place option change places, by having your fifth or sixth favorite thing swap places. The actual ability for public opinion to be translated into policy can sometimes be really hard. Now let's take a look at a real-world example of the Cuban Missile Crisis. We see here everybody's preferences for what to do in the event of the Cuban Missile Crisis. Do we want to implement a blockade, conduct an airstrike, or stage an invasion. And when we look at the outcome of this, we see that airstrike and blockade, there's a 0 arrow between them, so it means that the group is actually indifferent between an airstrike and a blockade. The historical account tells that diplomacy as an option was added into the mix late in the game, and that diplomacy, when you add that into everybody's preferences, may have actually changed the outcome. If we run the program again, looking at the Cuban Missile Crisis and wondering what the effect of diplomacy would be, we see that airstrikes and blockades, the group is still indifferent to that. This same data has been looked at under a board account style election, which is a different kind of election that I'm not going to get into today. When you have diplomacy and you add it in, it changes the group's preferences from airstrike to blockade. And that is just another way that you can get to a policy outcome that's completely different by looking at a different electoral system. What this means is that you can get different policy outcomes by having a different kind of election. So what is the takeaway? I don't think that this is something that we should use to diss democracy. I'd rather take the instability than just being told what to do all the time. But I hope that this, in a nutshell, can kind of show in a really grounded way why exactly it's worth paying so much attention to what is the actual process of an election, what are the actual rules that we have, because the rules might end up deciding the election itself. And ultimately, this is just a taste of what people have to say about elections, but I'll put some sources in the description if you want to check out more. Thank you very much. This code is going to be on GitHub. My name is Haven. I appreciate it. Thank you.